Welcome to another painting tutorial. In this one I'm going to look at some Skaven that I've painted up. Just want to note that I painted these with the old GW paints, but I'm going to be talking about the new paints. So if you check my website, I'll have a list of how to paint these up with the new paints, and sort of what I'll be talking about here is the techniques and the order in which I painted them. So obviously this is a decent sized unit. I've got, well, maybe not for Skaven, but for typical sort of things, I've got 30 guys, so 5 by 6. So that's a decent amount of guys to paint up in one go, but the object here is to get these guys looking decent and painted up as fast as possible. So what I've done here is I started out spray painting them with a light brown. Any light brown will do, as long as it's similar or close to what you think you want. And typically if you just go to your local hardware store or Walmart or whatever, you can find something. This one was called Boot Brown by Krylon. Krylon actually has some out now that are, they call them duals, and it's like a primer and pigment all in one. The benefit of that is it's a single coat, much better coverage, but you got to watch out it doesn't go in too thick. So it's almost like some of the Army Painter ones, I think. I can't speak to that specifically, but anyways, enough of that. So what I'm doing here is I'm painting on my fur color here, and that's going to go on some of the areas that have shown sort of these actual tufts of hair. And again, if you check on my website, I'll link to this video in the description below. If you see this first thing, it won't be there quite yet, but I'll have a link to my blog where I will list all the paints so you can get these kind of colors. Okay, so now I'm painting on some gray here. So what I did with these guys is I didn't actually use metallics. I'm using grays, and then I'm just going to do some dry brush metallics, and you'll see how that kind of works out. And the idea is I'm trying to cut out steps here. So got the grays. So this is my metals kind of base coat. Got some fur base coat. And now I'm starting to wash things. So this is just going to be sort of a sepia type wash. In the new range there's one, in the old range there's one, so either one will do. And putting it on nice and liberally everywhere. Okay, so now I'm ready for my next kind of step. So I'm highlighting the flesh here, and that's just going to be sort of a medium flesh tone. And I'm painting the base coat on here. So this is kind of a puke brown. I think that's actually vomit brown from the old range. Like I said, I'll put something up for the new one. But you're kind of looking for a mid-tone there. And now I'm just starting to highlight up some of the folds. Actually, these guys are going to be slaves. I think I picked these all specifically because they didn't have any armor on their backs. So slaves with hand weapons and shields. And you can see there what I'm doing. So I'm highlighting doing the highlights on the flesh here. Haven't done anything with the tail on that guy. And I'm using some contrast colors here. So I'm going to be using green there. I'm going to use that on the banner as well. Just trying to keep a unifying color here, so these will have a sort of a contrast color of green. The other thing to mention here, I've got some of that metal there has been dry brushed, so that was with the gray base, a sepia wash, and then just some metallics overbrushed on it. And there you can see the green, so it's a nice light green with just a single wash. So that's just going to be one, that's probably the equivalent of the Beltan wash now, or shade they're calling it. Little red dot there for the eye, and getting pretty close to being done. So I also use a bit of rust in here, you can see on some of the metal bits, and the skin there, just painted that on pretty quick. That's a better picture there. As well, I've done some of the base here. Now the new basing material will actually be much faster than the methods I've used, and somebody left a comment on one of my other YouTube videos saying that they had done 100 orcs with a bottle of the GW stuff. So while it is maybe more expensive than the Vallejo option, Vallejo does make a textured paint that works just like the new GW textures. But if that's not available in your location, the GW stuff will last you a decent amount of time. So I've been using that, and that's the only one I've used, and I like it for what it is. So my Skaven will be getting that kind of a treatment. So yeah, rough freehanding on this, some sort of a Skaven symbol here in the darker color. Trying to do something symmetrical on both sides, and then I'm just adding some contrast by giving it an outline there with a dark brown, and then highlighting sort of the inside, and that's just to give it some overall contrast. And then I did a bit of tufts of static grass on here just to give it a bit of variation. You can see that. And yeah, these guys actually didn't even do the tails on them, so I must have painted them up pretty fast. So realistically, this will take you very little time. As you can see, there's like 3 base coats, washes, and then a couple highlights. Another way to do this would be to do the highlights first and then the sepia wash. And for something like Skaven, that'll give you a bit more of a dirty look. It'll mute some of the highlights, which could be a good thing, depending on the look that you're going for. Otherwise, yeah, that's these guys. Nice unifying sort of the dirty yellows and some greens on them, and are ready for the tabletop. Obviously, any one of these guys up close isn't going to be that impressive, but as a unit, they look quite nice. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You can check out my blog. It's like watchingpaintdry.blogspot.com, and there'll be a link in the description below for that. As well, eventually there'll be a link to a post with all the paints that I would recommend using from the new GW range. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, like, comment. See you next time.